Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our travel talks tonight featuring G Adventures and focusing on Australia and New Zealand. My name is Lisa Amflick. I'm one of the consultants at Expedia Cruises, and this travel talk is being hosted by the 6 Edmonton and vicinity stores. And we are bringing you these travel talks to inspire you and give you ideas for future. For those of you who have not been on a Zoom call before, everyone is muted just so we can, for the size of the group, and we don't have any background noise. You do have the ability to turn your camera on or off, and we'd love to see your faces. So if you feel comfortable in that, just turn your video on. If you have any questions, we will handle them at the end of the meeting. And there is a chat feature you can click on, and you can type your question in the chat and we'll answer them at the end. So believe it or not, we are in 2021, and I think for many of us it's been a really long haul. But I am confident that late this year and definitely into 2022, we are going to begin traveling again. And I was at the office today and I got a couple calls from clients who said, I got my vaccine appointment, so I'm getting ready to book. So I think that's going to be happening. I don't know about you, but I am desperate to travel. I'm desperate to have a vacation. I've missed it. Travel fulfills us. That's why we do it. And I'm sure for all of you, you've missed it as well. My passport feels ignored. My suitcase is gathering dust, and I can't wait to be able to travel again when it's safe to do so. Our Expedia offices are open right now due to COVID restrictions. We're asking you to call or email to make appointments so we can make sure that we have somebody in the office and we can social distance. Our professional vacation consultants are here to help you plan your bucket list and also to help you navigate travel, because it's going to be a little bit different and maybe a little complicated with the COVID restrictions. But now I'd like to introduce you to our special guest, Erin Rogers, Business Development Manager from G Adventures, who's going to share with us the world down under, Australia, New Zealand. So welcome, Erin.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me, everyone. Nice to see all these faces on here, and good to hear that everyone is excited to travel, because my passport is also collecting dust and I can't wait to get out there and explore. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to take you on a bit of a tour tonight. So just bear with me for 1 second. And you should all see my screen up there now. So thanks so much for tuning in. If you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box and I'll do my best to answer them a little bit later on in the presentation. So my name's Erin. I'm with G Adventures. We are a Canadian tour company, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do at G if you haven't heard about us yet. We've been around since 1990, and we really specialize in putting together small group tours and taking people off the beaten track to fulfill their bucket list. And what we're seeing right now is that there's a lot of Canadians that are like Lisa and myself, and I'm sure a lot of you on the call tonight, we're just excited to plan something for future. So we're seeing lots of people look to late 2021 and into 2022 and even 2023 and get something booked. Something nice to look forward to that includes walls outside of your own home. So with G Adventures, we want to make sure that we're taking you off the beaten path. We do that by using local guides. We stay in locally owned properties, and we like to include a mix of the highlights of the destination, but also some kind of out of the way places for you to visit. We get up close and personal, so we are traveling in really small groups. And when I say small, I mean less than 20. We actually have an average of just 12 people in each of our groups. So unfortunately, we're not able to go on all the same trip, but the small groups are a really nice way to get to know other travelers too. We like to get local when we travel, so we make sure that we're visiting locally owned enterprises, and when you're visiting places like this part of Tanzania. So meeting the local people is a really great way to understand what it's like to be from that country, to live in that country, to hear their stories, and to understand their history. And on our tours, we like to get a little bit lost, but not too lost, of course, because that would be a problem for us as the tour operator. So don't you worry, we've got 30 years of experience and no one's getting lost on our tours. Our itineraries are unique. They are custom made for our audience. We have travelers joining us from 18 to 88 and even over. In fact, the last G Adventures trip I did was one in South Africa on safari for my honeymoon, not last summer, but the one before. And there was a gentleman in his 90s that joined us on tour, and he was amazing to travel with. We stay in local accommodations, so a real mix for you. We can hit all different budget points. We have a variety of levels of accommodation on each of our tours, but it's guaranteed that they're going to be essentially located, locally owned, and have lots of charm for you. We use skilled CEOs to guide our tours. So these are mostly group tours done on land. We also do some small ship cruises. Our guides are from the destination that you're visiting. So each one of our trips comes with one of these CEOs that's in charge of enriching the journey for you. So they're going to be able to offer local insight, add a unique perspective to the tour itinerary, translate menus if you need them, and steer you in the right direction. Now, our tours are open to people from all over the world. They are small groups, so you are guaranteed to meet people from different places when you go on one of our tours, which is always really fun when you're exploring the world. And we don't charge any single supplements. So our tours are very, very popular if you are a solo traveler. In that event, you would be matched up with another traveler of the same gender to share a room, or twin share, of course. And then if you do want to have your own room, you can pay a little bit more and guarantee that that is available for you. So really nice and flexible. And rest assured, if you're a solo traveler, you're definitely not going to be the only one. About 40% of our travelers are going on adventure solo. We operate tours in over 100 countries around the world in a regular year. Right now, we've got a few tours out on the road, and we're going to be opening up new destinations as it's safe to do so. Now, on the note of safety, I do want to mention that we have received the Safe Travel stamp of approval from the World Travel and Tourism Council. So this provides you, the traveler, with assurance that we've implemented health and hygiene protocols that are aligned with the World Travel and Tourism Council's safe protocols. So on the tours that we're running right now, we've implemented social distancing. Everyone, of course, needs to do a self-health check before they go and wear a mask. Most of our Canadian audience, though, are booking for trips down the road, so you're probably going to be already vaccinated by the time you're booking onto, or by the time you're traveling onto one of these tours. But of course, now is the time to think about booking. We all know that travel is going to rebound with a fierce, actually, I'll just describe it in the way my friend has described it, as a hockey stick rebound. So what we're thinking at G Adventures is that our 2022 departures, a lot of them are going to end up being sold out. So if you are thinking about a bucket list, if there's a place that you've always wanted to go to and visit, now is a really great time to book in. There's lots of savings in the market, and then and plan to travel later. So what we're talking about tonight is Australia. I do have to say it's absolutely one of my favorite countries. If my husband, who's Australian, is in the room, it is my favorite country to travel to and to visit. It's a beautiful mix of beaches, rugged terrain, coastal cities. They also are very easygoing and relaxed, like we are here in Canada. There's sprawling deserts, huge forests, some snow-capped mountains actually, but mostly when you think of Australia, you think of beaches and the reef. It's interesting, we've got an interesting history to share and lots to offer in destinations. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is kind of some of the major regions in Australia and New Zealand, and then give you an idea of how we travel to these regions at G Adventures. Everyone's first stop into Australia has always got to be Sydney. This is one of my absolute favorite cities. Actually, when putting together this presentation, I felt a little homesick because I've been there quite a few times and my in-laws live there. So, of course, it's on my radar to visit as soon as they open the borders again, which hopefully will be sooner rather than later. It's the capital of New South Wales. It's where most international flights will take you. It's one of Australia's largest cities, very well known, of course, for the Opera House, which you see on the screen, the Harbour Bridge that's in the back behind. If you've ever watched the New Year's celebration in Australia, they have beautiful fireworks that are let off right on the Harbour Bridge. This area itself is called Darling Harbour. There's a small circular quay, which is really the port hub with waterside life. There's opportunity to jump on ferries there to go to the northern beaches or to get into a sailboat. Also located really close by is the Royal Botanic Garden. Beautiful area, nice little walkway along here, and a great place to visit. Getting to the beach is obviously on everyone's must-do list for Australia. They have some of the most beautiful beaches on earth. One of the most famous beaches is Bondi. It's located closest to Sydney. It's full of locals, but also a big tourist stop for when you're traveling to Australia. White sand beaches, there's always surf here, so it draws in both locals and tourists. There are also some ocean pools that are open year-round that you can visit if you're not ready to get right in the ocean. On the other side is Manly. So this is reached from the Central Business District, which is the CBD, which they call the downtown of Sydney, reached by a ferry across Sydney Harbour. So even if you're not interested in getting to this beach, it's always worth jumping on that ferry ride. Most of our tours do start in Sydney, so we always recommend having a couple of extra days to explore on your own, as there's so much to see and do. Manly has a little bit more relaxed vibe than Bondi. It's a little bit quieter, and it's also got some trees kind of right along the beachfront there. Another thing that we like to recommend, of course, for Australia is the wine. They are massive in wine exportation. So one of the world's largest exporters of wine. So they actually make about 1.3 billion liters annually and send about 800 million of that overseas. So if you haven't tried Australian wine, put that on your to-do list for the weekend. And we like to include a wine tasting actually on quite a few of our tours through Australia. It's a really nice way to connect with the locals, to learn about their agricultural economy, and of course you get to taste the wine. Another popular area to visit is Melbourne. So Melbourne is the coastal capital of southeastern Australian state of Victoria. I actually lived in Melbourne back probably 16 years ago and absolutely loved it. It has made me a little bit of a coffee snob. They're quite known for their cafes, but there's lots to see and do in this area too. The center of Melbourne, there's Federation Square, where there's bars and restaurants all along the Yarra River. In the South Bank, there's more of an arts vibe. So there's an art center, National Gallery of Victoria, that features Australian and Indigenous art. There's also beaches in Melbourne. This is Brighton Beach. So these were built well over a century ago. They're inspired by the kind of Victorian idea of beach houses and bathing houses. So they haven't changed really since then, other than a paint coat, obviously. These are picture postcard perfect. And this is actually where people rent them. They have long-term leases on these, and they just keep their boogie boards and sand chairs in them. But most people traveling here are just going by for the photo. Also in the state of Victoria, you'll find the Great Ocean Road. So this is an Australian National Heritage listed. It's 243-kilometer stretch of road along the southeast, going along the southeast coast of Australia, going west from Victoria. So going west along to Torquay, which is an area where you'll find Bells Beach, a big surf area. So this particular stretch of highway was built by returned soldiers between 1919 and 1932 and dedicated to these soldiers that were killed in World War I. In addition to the unique history along here, it's incredible terrain, beautiful landscapes, and the chance to see what once was called the 12 Apostles. Unfortunately, there's only about, I think, 7 of these apostles that are still standing, but still a beautiful stop on the road. One of the other draws to Australia, of course, is the unique wildlife. This guy is a koala, not a koala bear, just a koala. More than 80% of Australian plants, mammals, reptiles, and frogs are unique to Australia and are found nowhere else in the world. So some of the most popular ones that you'll have heard of course, are the kangaroo, the dingoes, the wallabies, the wombats, the koala, platypus, and echidna, which is kind of like a small version of our porcupine, very small version of our porcupine. So lots of chance to see the koalas down along the Great Ocean Road, an opportunity to see the kangaroos and other creatures if you get into areas like the outback. So the outback is the vast, sparsely populated area of Australia. Indigenous Australians have lived in this area for about 50,000 years and occupied all of the outback regions, including the driest of deserts. The Europeans first entered Australia in the 1800s, and so we're still kind of just exploring a little bit more in this area. Apologies in advance if the video does shake a little bit. I just wanted to show you a little bit of a snapshot of Uluru. So this is known as Ayers Rock. It's a large sandstone rock formation in the southern part of the Northern Territory in Australia. It is literally in the middle of nowhere. The closest town is about 300 kilometers away. And it's sacred to the Aboriginal people. So it's really important to respect that when you're traveling, of course, and going with a local guide like what we do at G Adventures means that you get to learn all about the history and the cultural significance of places like Uluru. Uluru now is listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's one of the most recognizable sites in Australia, and yet a lot of Aussies still haven't seen it. So my husband, as an example, hasn't yet been to Uluru because most of the Australian population are situated along the coastal areas. So this would be kind of a big trip for them getting into the outback to see it. But it's been a popular destination for tourists since the late 1300s. Also in this area is Kata Tuja, which they're also called the Olas. So other formations similar to Uluru of this red sandstone. They're in a protected national park just outside of the area of Uluru. Now, when you're traveling on one of our tours, you get time to learn the stories of the Aboriginals. So how we design the tours is that you have a G Adventures guide with you from start to finish. But then from place to place in destination, you'll have local guides joining you to share their expertise on that destination, to give you insight into their way of life, to tell you the stories from their ancestors. And it's a really beautiful way to learn about a place. Another area in Australia that draws travelers is North Queensland, or as they like to call it, tropical North Queensland. The temperature and climate, you can see just from the contrast in those two photos, is obviously very different from place to place. They are, of course, in the southern hemisphere, so their winter is our summer and our winter is their summer. Tropical North Queensland is pretty much humid and hot all of the time, which is why lots of travelers like to get up there. It's surrounded by rainforest, fringed by reef, and then there's the red dirt of the outback just to the west. It's most famous for the Great Barrier Reef, but there's lots more to see than just that. The Daintree Rainforest is one of the areas that we like to take our travelers into, just a bit of a contrast from being in the dusty, dry desert of the outback, getting into this really kind of jungle, tropical climate in the rainforest. It's about 1,200 square kilometers, and it's part of the tropical rainforest on the Australian continent, obviously. So it's located north of Cairns, and this is it's a really kind of dense jungle area, amazing for bird watching. So if anyone's looking to see wildlife in Australia, definitely make sure that you're going to see you're likely to see your kangaroos pretty much right off the bat. But get into one of these areas will allow you to see more than just the kangaroos. Now, also in this area, we are connecting with locals. So Aboriginal history is important on our tours of Australia. This experience, I think, is just so beautiful that we include this in our tours, not only visiting, of course, the major sites in this beautiful country, but also connecting with the locals. Now, most people that are traveling to Australia would be very interested in getting out to the Great Barrier Reef. So this is the world's largest coral reef system, which has over 2,900 individual reefs and 900 islands. stretching over 2,300 kilometers over an area of 334,000 square kilometers. So lots and lots and lots. It's the largest barrier reef on the planet and very well known, of course, as one of the most popular areas for snorkeling and scuba diving. But you can still access the reef without actually having to get in the ocean. The Great Barrier Reef can be seen from outer space and is the world's biggest living organism. It's stunning to visit up close. You are, of course, most welcome to join us for a scuba or snorkel, or you can sit back and relax and take on a sailboat ride out into the Whitsunday Islands. So the Whitsundays are an island grouping made up of 74 islands that are located between the coast of Australia and the Great Barrier Reef. Most of the islands are uninhabited. There's super dense rainforest, but hiking trails and beautiful white sand beaches, which of course is the big draw in this area. So just want to give you an idea of some of the tour options that you have for Australia with G Adventures. This is our Best of Australia Plus tour. Plus just means that we're operating with the smaller group size. So usually our group sizes max is 16, an average of 12. With this particular tour, it's a maximum of 12, so much smaller group size. Australia is a very, very big place. And so we have packaged this to see kind of the most of the coast that you can do in a period of 14 days. It starts up in Cairns, so it's a southbound tour. From Cairns, you get into the Daintree Rainforest with one of our Indigenous guides. You have the option to visit the Great Barrier Reef. We go sailing in the Whitsundays. We visit Byron Bay and Brisbane. We hike in the Blue Mountains, which are outside of Sydney. We are doing an orientation walk in Sydney, and then we've built in free time, and that's something I didn't mention earlier. So if you've never taken a group tour, a lot of the time you might just kind of think of it as being a big bus tour where your time is very managed. And don't get me wrong, we do like to make sure we have lots included with your travel, but we also built in free time for you. So you're not on a super rigid schedule when you're traveling on a G Adventures tour. That's because we want to make sure that there's time in the tours for spontaneous experiences. So if you want to do something special in any of these areas, we want to be able to accommodate that for you. It also helps that our group sizes are small, so we're able to kind of ebb and flow with the requirements of the travelers in the group. We have a Best of the Red Centre and Eastern Australia Plus. So this one, it starts in Melbourne. It's 25 days. It goes from the south in Victoria through the outposts or the outback, area of Uluru up into northern tropical Queensland in Cairns, out to the Barrier Reef in the Whitsundays, and then we kind of continue on that path. So really nice program if you're interested in spending a bit more time in Australia. So this particular one is 25 days. Or we've got our Ultimate Australia and New Zealand tour. So this is a great one if you are looking to package two countries together. We actually include that flight between Sydney and Auckland. And then this one's taking you onwards into New Zealand to explore that place for a period of 14 days. So this is the 25-day package in Australia plus the 14 days in New Zealand. So one of the things that I do want to mention with our style of travel, so this is a classic style of tour. What that means is that your accommodations are going to be boutique hotels. On this particular one, we have rainforest cabins for 2 nights, and we stay overnight in a Maori village in New Zealand, which is a really incredible cultural experience for you. So nice package if you're looking to do a much longer trip. Or if you want to do something short, we can accommodate that too. We have a partnership with National Geographic in which we have a lineup of 80 National Geographic Journeys tours. The difference between our regular G Adventures tours and these National Geographic tours is that as you can see, there are more flights included. So you spend less time traveling, more time in destination. The accommodations are upgraded, so you'd be staying at around 4-star properties. We've also included breakfast every day, and there's some special inclusions that are just in our National Geographic tours. So these tours are put together between our team based in Canada and the US-based National Geographic team. So we've come together to use kind of our resources as an adventure travel company and the National Geographic resources as a global, pretty much the biggest travel company on the planet, or travel brand, I guess, not travel company. And together we've designed some really, really beautiful itineraries. So in this particular tour, we have the Rocks is an area in Sydney. So we have a Rocks Indigenous Dreaming and Welcome Tour for arrival into Sydney. There's a harbor dinner cruise, which looks amazing. We go to the James Cook University Aquarium up in Cairns. And that's just a special invite because we're doing this tour in partnership with National Geographic. We've got options to still be active if you want to scuba or snorkel. We do an Indigenous Dreamtime walk in the Daintree. So a little bit more focus on culture and history with our National Geographic programs. Now, our second destination to feature tonight is New Zealand. So this is a adventure dream. It's Tolkien-worthy landscape, as you can see from this photo on the screen tonight. It's the country that invented bungee jumping, one thing that I will never do again. It's beautiful, it has snow-capped mountains, shining lakes, roaring rivers. Also has a really tiny population. They've done an incredible job at managing COVID. If anyone's following along, their Prime Minister Jacinda is like just an absolute leader in the fight against the global pandemic. So it's definitely a country that is on everyone's radar for traveling to as soon as the borders have reopened. Now, New Zealand can be easily split into two areas, of course, because there are two islands. So what to expect from the North Island? The North Island actually has the most population of all of New Zealand. So it's home to about 3/4 of the population. So New Zealand as a country has less than 5 million people residing there. So they actually, so when I first visited New Zealand back in 2001, they had 4 sheep for every human that lived in New Zealand. I don't know if that ratio is still the same, but I'm pretty sure it's quite close. The North Island, you'll find Auckland, which is the country's largest city, and that's kind of the big, the only real city, kind of by our Canadian standards, I guess, because it's everywhere else is like a tiny city or a small town. Auckland itself is surrounded by bays and islands. It's known as the City of Sails, and it is really, really beautiful. If you're spending any time there, there's actually a better shot there of Auckland. We were just looking at a beach outside of it before. So it's the most populous hub. It's where you find all the art and culture, music in the city. There's volcanic hills in the background, which you can kind of see there. Twin harbors, there is a mix of natural wonders and also kind of urban adventures in the city of Auckland. Further south down the island, you'll find Rotorua, which looks beautiful, smells terrible. This is on the Pacific Rim of Fire, they call it. It's geothermal wonderland, beautiful if you're an aspiring photographer, bubbling mud pools, clouds of steam, and of course, close to that are some incredible natural hot springs. One of the unique sights to see in the North Island is the Waitomo Caves. So these caves are lined with stalagmites, stalactites, and glowworms. They can be explored on a guided walk, a boat tour, or you can do a rafting trip through there. And this is something that's included in a lot of our tours. Tongariro is the area that's a national park. It was actually New Zealand's first national park, dating back to 1887. It's about 80,000 hectares square. It's a showcase of volcanic wonders. I mean, just looking at this photo, it could be in Iceland or somewhere like that. So you see emerald lakes, old lava flows, steaming craters. It's a very popular area for hiking. There's actually something called the Tongariro Crossing, which is New Zealand's most popular one-day crossing trek. One of the other things to see and do in the North Island is to visit the Maori village. So this is a Tamaki Maori village that we include in our tours. Most often we stay away from kind of performance activities on tour because we want to have a real kind of grassroots authentic experience with the locals. But this experience is that It's locally run. It's really incredibly interesting. There's a traditional hangi meal that's prepared for everyone, and if you haven't heard that term before, it's unique to New Zealand. It's basically where they prepare the meal over a bed of coals and under dirt. So they dig a deep hole, they put the coals in, and everything kind of cooks and smokes all together. It's incredibly delicious. And that's a traditional hangi. So in this, we are visiting a typical, traditional Maori village. We have a local guide that joins us for the tour. It's like kind of like a living museum, I guess, in terms of what the experience is for you, the traveler. Heading on to the South Island, this is a little bit more rugged. A lot of people compare New Zealand with Western Canada in terms of its like rocky-like kind of mountains and landscapes. So the South Island is known more for more rugged landscape, glaciers, lakes. The Southern Alps are home to the highest point, which is Mount Cook, which you'll see in just a few slides, and they run along the entire length of the island. Down in the southwest, which is what you see on your screen, this is the Fiordland National Park. It's Milford Sound is an area that you may have heard of, and next to Milford Sound is Doubtful Sound, a little bit quieter, but steep mountains going into deep fjords, absolutely beautiful. And then the north part of the South Island is well known for Abel Tasman National Park, where there's really great trails for hiking, biking, and also waterways for kayaking. Down in the south, Queenstown is one of the big kind of adventure hubs. There is lots to see and do around Queenstown. If you're doing any trips that are ending in Queenstown, we always recommend adding on a couple of extra days. You can take a jet boat, you can take gondola, you can, oh gosh, you can go bungee jumping, you can go skydiving, mountain biking. It's really full of adventure. Kaikoura is a beautiful area, not on too many people's radars, but should be. It's a coastal town in the South Island, so it's in the northeast part of the South Island of New Zealand. It's known for its abundant wildlife and whale population. So if watching whales is on your wish list, definitely make sure you're picking an itinerary with Kaikoura in it. Also really well known to see dolphins. There is the Kaikoura Peninsula Walkway, which brings you up to the lookout point, which this picture is taken from, Point Kean. Close by, there's also rock platforms where you'll likely see some New Zealand fur seals. So lots of wildlife viewing opportunities in this part of the world. Kaikoura itself, just to look at, is absolutely stunning. So if you're interested in a little bit of a beach time and relax, then this is a good spot to include too. Definitely contrasting to the cold ice of Franz Josef Glacier. So this is a 12-kilometer glacier on the west coast of New Zealand's South Island, so kind of hopping across there. At Franz Josef, you have the chance to do a walking tour where you're given crampons, of course, and the ice axe and the equipment to do the walk on the glacier. Or you can do the more scenic way and take the helicopter. So you do a little bit of a walk on the glacier, and then you can hop up in this helicopter for really stunning views. I mentioned mountains earlier, so this is a view of Mount Cook, which is the one on the far right of your screen. So this is the highest mountain in New Zealand. It's located at 3,724 meters, which doesn't seem too high, I guess, compared to our Canadian mountains, but is still very stunning in this part of the world. And this is part of the Southern Alps that run all the range of the South Island. Christchurch is well known for the earthquakes, actually, that it suffered back in 2010 and 2011. It's also known for its English heritage. So it's located on the east coast, jumping it back across, of New Zealand's South Island. There's lots of really beautiful cycling paths, green botanical gardens in this area. And yet there was a bit of damage, quite a bit of damage actually from the earthquakes back in 2010 and 2011. Central Otago is a great region to know. You may see it in your local wine or beer store. It's the beautiful landscape in the middle of the South Island. The climate here actually makes it pretty similar to the Okanagan. So it's dry, sunny, and brown with lots of flowing rivers. There's herb fields, but also really well known for wine growing. or grape growing, wine producing. So back in the 1860s, this is where they found gold, but now the gold there is in the wine. So you have to look for, if you're in the New Zealand section of your local liquor store, you can see lots of Pinot Noirs come out of the central Otago region of New Zealand. Apple Tasman National Park, I mentioned earlier, beautiful. It is on the ocean, so there's lots of access points here to get out to do some walking or kayaking. And then Queenstown is one of New Zealand's most stunning destinations, surrounded by mountains, super jagged, really incredibly colored waters. It's also on the edge of a lake, and it's where adventure exists. And then further south, Milford Sound and Doubtful Sound are equally as stunning. Doubtful Sound is a little bit quieter. We do a wilderness cruise in Doubtful Sound. So jumping on this beautiful ship with one of our guides to explore the fjords down in Doubtful Sound. Now, to explore New Zealand, we've got a couple of different options for you here. So this is a 2-week program. It's 15 days from Auckland to Christchurch. In the north, we go over to the Coromandel Peninsula, where I was there just last year. Cathedral Cove, we have the cultural experience at Tamaki. We're visiting Mount Cook, doing some hiking, doing some wine tasting in central Otago, visiting Kaikoura. We get to walk on Franz Joseph. We do the Transalpine train across from Queenstown to Twizel, and there's free time built into this tour as well. If you're looking for something a little bit more active, we have a multi-sport tour for those that are interested in doing some walking or hiking or biking or kayaking. It's a little bit longer. It's 3 weeks in total. So we've got some cycling included. We do the Tongariro Alpine Crossing. We do kayaking. We visit the Waitomo Caves. We are up in the morning, out exploring as much as we possibly can. Now we've got one of our National Geographic programs, also in New Zealand, the New Zealand Journey. So this one, as you can see, includes a flight from Rotorua to Christchurch. So if you are shorter on time and want to do things in a shorter package, this one's 12 days. So we've got the orientation walk in Auckland. We go to Waiheke Island, wineries tours. I've tried to intentionally not include very many Maori words in this because they're very difficult to produce and not kind of normal for my language. But you'll notice them if you're in New Zealand on all the signs. They're just incredible to pronounce. So we're going off the coast of Auckland to the Waiheke Island for a winery tour. We meet a Maori elder in Rotorua. We check out the caves again. We have the traditional Hangi feast. We're taking the train. We visit Queenstown, and then we go on a wilderness cruise down in the Fiordland National Park. So a little bit shorter itinerary. With this one, it's upgraded accommodations, so 4-star, and we're running this, of course, in partnership with National Geographic. And the last tour I wanted to share with you this evening is our Explore Australia in New Zealand. So this one is also part of our National Geographic Journeys programs. It's 23 days. It goes from Sydney all the way to Queenstown. So this is combining 2 of the tours that you've already seen. We are doing the Indigenous Dreaming and Welcome Tour in Sydney at the Rocks, flying up to Cairns, getting into the Daintree, out to the reef, into the outback at Uluru, down into sipped lattes and flat whites with the coffee culture in Melbourne, and then over to Auckland, downward south, and ending all the way down in Queenstown. So as you can see, I love these 2 countries. I would happily be there right now if I could. Been fairly fortunate to have visited Australia 5 times now, and my in-laws live in Sydney, so we're going to get there as soon as those borders open. And was recently in New Zealand, and that was actually one of my very first big overseas trip that I did back about 20 years ago. So I have very fond memories of both countries, and really, really hope that that you make sure to put these on your travel wish list. Now, just wanted to mention one more thing about traveling with G Adventures. So because it's a little bit of a crazy time right now, just want to let you know that we are we are working really, really closely with our guides and our local offices, which exist all around the world, to make sure that you are able to travel with confidence when you join one of our tours. So from start to finish, from when you book to when you're on tour to when you're in destination and when you're coming home, we're going to make sure that you are safe, of course, and that you're traveling with people that are taking care of you. So traveling in our groups means that we have a local guide with you. They're trained in first aid, CPR, COVID health and safety. We have the local resources of our offices. And I don't know about you guys, but driving on the other side of the road is not very easy. So that was absolutely one of the reasons to book onto a tour if you're going to Australia or New Zealand. And the way that we travel is nice because you have that resource of the local guide, but you also have that flexibility and freedom. If there's something really special that you want to see in destination, we'll be able to accommodate that and make sure that you're checking those things off your bucket list. If you're looking for more information on any of the programs that you've seen tonight, we would love for you to connect with your travel agent. We have 2 brochures that are out right now. They would be able to send you a link to have a look through these brochures. So we have our National Geographic Journeys program, and in our Earth brochure, we have the rest of adventures that we do all over the world. So at G Adventures, we operate tours in over 100 countries, and we have about 606 itineraries to choose from. So we've selected just a few tonight for the showcase on Australia and New Zealand, but if there's somewhere else that you want to go, like Antarctica or on an African safari or somewhere in South America, please do connect with your Expedia Cruises agent for some more information, as they are experts in promoting our tours and will be there to be able to help you. So thanks so much for tuning in this evening, everyone. I really appreciate your attention, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and send it back over to the Expedia Cruises team.
Thank you so much, Erin. Oh my God, how exciting. And definitely, I think many of us, if we haven't been there, we want to add that to our bucket list. One thing I just want to mention for any of you who are avid cruisers, it is always possible, since a lot of the tours look like they start in Sydney and Auckland, that we can add a cruise to a land tour as well. So we can make it a wonderful trip for you. I'm just going to go to a couple of questions, Erin. One that came in: what is the common length of time for a tour to Australia and New Zealand?
Personally, I would recommend at least 2 weeks, just based on the flight time to get there. If you have 3 weeks, that would be the ideal time to visit. I mean, Australia itself is a really big country, so if you're going to visit both, then I would look to 3 to 4 weeks to visit both countries at the same time. But if you have 2 to 3 weeks for Australia and at least 2 weeks for New Zealand, and then combine those together if you can.
All right, perfect. There's another question about, do any of the trips go all over Australia, hitting all of the provinces?
We don't have any itineraries in Western Australia at the moment, but we are constantly coming up with new tours. So there might be something coming out for next year. So we have the one that I would recommend. I believe it's called, I can't remember the name actually, but it starts in Sydney, it goes all the way up the coast and then into the center and then finishes in Melbourne. And that would be a really good overview of Australia.
Okay, thank you. And one other question: what does NP mean? And I think somebody answered National Park.
National Park, yeah. Yeah.
All right. All right. Were there any other questions you wanted to type it into the chat box?
One thing I do want to add, if anyone is planning to book onto a G Adventures tour program, it's just a deposit to confirm your space. It's a deposit of $350 per person, and that deposit's good for life. So if you need to make any changes to your travel dates, to your destination, you can do that with the assistance of your travel agent, as long as you're doing that at least 60 days before your scheduled tour is. So lots of flexibility in that, and did want to mention that.
Thank you for mentioning that. I think it's really important because all of us are going to start traveling. And I have to let you know that the demand is really, really high for 2021, 2022. We're even booking into 2023. And many of the suppliers are doing flexible policies so that you don't feel restricted, so that you know that your investment is safe on that. So good idea to start thinking and planning early. I think a lot of the pleasure of a trip comes from planning it. So please contact any of the consultants at Expedia Cruises. We want to thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your past travels with us. We look forward to planning your future vacations. So reach out to us with any questions you have. Also, remember to follow us on Facebook. Check out our YouTube channel where this video presentation and all others that we've done will be recorded. Next Thursday, if you're interested in river cruising, we are going to have Shauna Carter with AMA Waterways talking about Europe river cruising for 2022, and they've just opened up for 2023. So please join us if you can. Thank you again for joining us. It's so wonderful to have you with us, and we look forward to hearing from you and planning your future vacation plans. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night.